Welcome back to another episode of Tales of the Beard. I'm your host, Matt. Sorry about my little bit of a raspy voice. I coach basketball. We've had a lot of games. My voice is slightly beat up. We're going to get through this. We're going to jump right into this. Let's do this. It was an unusually warm day in January when President Donnie Thunder took the oath of the old office. He stood on the steps of the Capitol building, his hand unwavering on the Bible, a wide grin plastered on his face. The cameras flashed, the crowd cheered, but Donnie didn't notice. This was his moment, and the whole world knew it. Donnie Thunder had campaigned with a swagger, a boldness that was part showmanship, part charisma, and all self-assurance. He was a businessman who turned politician, the kind of guy who said whatever came to mind and called it truth. He had promised to make America great again, not by the usual political means, but by his own brand of show-stopping, unapologetic leadership. The country, however, wasn't quite as enthusiastic. The nation was divided more so than ever. The economy was in turmoil. The rich were richer and the poor were poor. The climate crisis was no longer a warning. It was a blazing reality. The global political stage was as messy as ever, and Donnie had big shoes to fill after the previous president's abrupt exit. But Donnie wasn't worried. Why would he be? He had the best ideas, the biggest plans, and most importantly, the people loved him. Or so he thought. As he entered the Oval Office for the maybe first time, he couldn't help but feel a little bit smug. This was his kingdom now. The resolute desk wasn't just wood and leather. It was his stage. He could feel the presence of every president who had ever sat in that chair. But he wasn't concerned with them. He was Donnie Thunder, and nobody had ever done what he was about to do. The first few weeks of Donnie's presidency were eventful. He held huge rallies, tweeted aggressively, and made bold claims about fixing the economy, defeating terrorism, and negotiating the best trade deals. But behind the curtains, the world wasn't so accommodating. Foreign adversaries tested his mettle, both on the battlefield and in the boardrooms. He took a hard stance on the international trade, slapping tariffs on countries that didn't play by his rules. Domestically, things were tense. Protests erupted in cities across the country. His supporters, many of whom had rallied for change, began to question whether Donnie's big promises would ever materialize. Critics in the media painted him as a man of chaos, a president who used Twitter more than diplomacy. The first few months saw unprecedented divides in the country. It wasn't just politics, it was culture, economics, and values. America was teetering on the brink of something far deeper. But Donnie didn't care about that. He had the best people, the best advisors. He had been winning all his life. Sure, things didn't go according to plan every single time, but he was still confident that his grand vision would pull through. He would fix everything. He would make America loud again. Then came the cyber attack. It was massive, more than just a nuisance. It was an act of war. The country's infrastructure was compromised. Power grids, communication lines, military networks, everything was in disarray. The world had its eyes on Donnie, waiting to see how he would respond. He didn't hesitate. In his office, surrounded by a small group of trusted advisors, Donnie leaned back in his chair, putting his feet up on the desk. The weight of the situation, it didn't faze him. I know exactly what to do, Donnie said, his trademark smirk appearing. We're going to hit them hard. No messes. No one messes with Thunder. His team hesitated. This wasn't a trade dispute. It was an international threat. But Donnie's confidence, his brashness, it was infectious. He looked at them as if he were daring them to doubt him. Send the missiles. Let's show the world who's boss. His advisors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Was he serious? Would this escalate further? But Donnie was already dialing the phone, his voice booming into the receiver. He had made his decision. The world would know that he wasn't just another politician. He was a force. The missile strikes were swift, and the international community was left in shock. The measures, they were harsh. An attack of a foreign nation that wasn't fully verified. Casualties mounted, and the world was outraged. Donnie, however, took to Twitter, his go-to weapon, claiming victory. America is strong. We don't take threats lightly. You'll see. #winning. The backlash was swift. Global markets began to tank, and several allies publicly distanced themselves from Donnie's actions. Protests in America reached a fever pitch. People were scared. They were angry. They were disappointed. Donnie's approval ratings took a nosedive. And the media, well, they did what they do. They had a field day with every single misstep. But Donnie wasn't about to back down his instincts. They told him to push harder, to double down. Power, after all, was about making bold decisions and sticking to them. He couldn't show weakness. He couldn't let them see he was scared. He was Donnie Thunder, and Thunder didn't apologize. The more the pressure mounted, the more Donnie turned to his inner circle for support. His chief of staff, Blake Garner, he had been with him through thick and thin, but even he was beginning to question the direction they were heading. Mr. President, Blake began one night, after yet another one of those angry calls from foreign leaders. We're losing people. They want something different. They want hope. Old Donnie Thunder leaned back, his eyes narrowing. Hope? Blake, you know what the people want. Power. They want strength. They want results, and I give them results. I always have. Blake hesitated. At what cost, sir? The question hung in the air, unspoken, yet clear. As the weeks wore on, Donnie's decisions became a little more erratic. He alienated allies, pitted people against each other, and pushed a relentless agenda of power. The country, once hopeful, now felt divided beyond repair. Even his staunchest supporters began to question him. The promises of economic revival were slipping through his fingers, and his foreign policy decisions were becoming increasingly, controversial. And yet, Donnie Thunder didn't waver. He had power, he had control, and in his mind, that's all that mattered. He could feel the weight of the presidency sinking in. It didn't scare him. He was a businessman, a fighter. He knew how to win, no matter the cost. The question that haunted him, though, was the one he had asked himself during those quiet, lonely moments. Would he become the villain of his own story? As history began to judge him, the lines blurred. Would Donnie Thunder be remembered as the man who saved America, or the man who tore it apart? Would he remain the proud, defiant leader he had promised to be, or would he become the darkness of unchecked power consuming him, turning him into the very monster that he once feared? Well, I guess only time would tell, right? Happy 2025. Hopefully you enjoyed this fictional story. We'll be back next week with another Tales of the Beard. Take care, everybody.